In 2010, a college dropout with a half-finished app and no real plan almost gave up before he ever started. What he built instead, in just a few short weeks, would go on to become one of the most valuable acquisitions in the history of Silicon Valley. And it all began with a single photo of a harbor that nobody thought twice about at the time. This is the story of Instagram, and why it still matters more than a decade later. It's not just a story about a photo-sharing app. It's a story about how one small decision, the decision to strip away almost everything and focus on just one idea, turned a failing product into a billion-dollar company in under 2 years. It's a story about timing, about betting everything on a hunch, and about how the smallest features can end up reshaping how an entire generation communicates, buys things, and even sees itself. To understand where it all started, you have to go back to Stanford University, where a young engineering student named Kevin Systrom was building the foundation for everything that came next. Systrom had grown up in Holliston, Massachusetts, learning to program as a kid, partly inspired by playing and building levels for Doom 2, and developing an early passion for photography as president of his high school's photo club. At Stanford, he studied management science and engineering, and during his time there, he was selected as one of just 12 students for the Mayfield Fellows Program, an intensive training ground for future tech entrepreneurs. He also landed an internship at a small company called Odeo, working alongside Evan Williams and Jack Dorsey, the same people who would go on to build Twitter. After graduating in 2006, Systrom spent 2 years at Google before joining a small location-based startup called NextStop, which was later acquired by Facebook, long before Instagram ever entered the picture. It was during a vacation in Mexico that the real spark happened. Systrom's girlfriend was hesitant to post her photos online because they didn't look good enough straight out of an iPhone camera. His answer to that problem was filters, a way of disguising the technical limitations of early phone cameras behind something that looked artistic and intentional. He would later develop the X Pro 2 filter himself, a filter that remains part of Instagram to this day. That single insight would become one of the app's most defining features. But at the time, it was buried inside a much bigger, much messier idea. That idea was called Burbn, a location check-in app inspired by the rising popularity of Foursquare. Systrom built an early prototype and pitched it to investors at a party, and within 2 weeks of quitting his job to pursue it full-time, he closed a $500,000 seed round from Baseline Ventures and Andreessen Horowitz in March of 2010. Burbn let users check into locations, make future plans, earn points for hanging out with friends, and post photos, all crammed into one increasingly complicated app. Around this time, Systrom brought on a fellow Stanford graduate, Mike Krieger, a Brazilian software engineer who had previously worked on the social platform Meebo, to help him build it out. But Burbn had a serious problem. It tried to do too much, and users found it overwhelming and confusing. Drawing on lessons from their time at Stanford, Systrom and Krieger made the decision that would define the company's entire future. They looked at how people were actually using the app and noticed something surprising. The one feature people kept coming back to wasn't check-ins or points, it was the simple act of sharing photos. So they made a bold and, at the time, terrifying choice. They stripped away almost everything else, the check-ins, the plans, the point system, and rebuilt the entire product from scratch around a single idea, sharing photos beautifully and instantly. They even experimented briefly with a stripped-down prototype called Scotch before landing on their final direction. They renamed the app Instagram, a blend of the words instant camera and telegram, and focused the entire experience on simplicity. Images, filters, comments, and a like button, built exclusively for the iPhone 4 to take advantage of its dramatically improved camera compared to earlier models. The first ever Instagram photo was posted by Mike Krieger himself, a simple, unremarkable shot of South Beach Harbor at Pier 38 in San Francisco, posted at 5:26 in the afternoon on July 16, 2010. Nobody watching that moment could have predicted what was coming. On October 6, 2010, the app officially launched on Apple's App Store, and the response was almost immediate and, frankly, stunning even to its own creators. Within a single day, it had racked up 25,000 users. 1 week later, It crossed 100,000. By December, just 67 days after launch, Instagram had passed 1 million users, a growth curve that stunned even seasoned investors watching from the sidelines. By June of the following year, it had reached 5 million users. And by September of 2011, less than a year after launch, that number had climbed past 10 million. That explosive growth didn't go unnoticed by the wider tech world. In February 2011, Instagram raised $7 million in Series A funding from a group of investors that included Benchmark Capital, Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey, and investor Chris Sacca. The recognition kept building too. Instagram was named runner-up for Best Mobile App at the TechCrunch Crunchies in January 2011. Fast Company listed Systrom among the 100 most creative people in business that same year. And Inc. included both Systrom and Krieger on its 30 under 30 list. By December 2011, Apple had crowned Instagram its App of the Year, an extraordinary achievement for an app not even 14 months old. What had started as a stripped-down pivot from a failing check-in app was now one of the most talked-about products in the entire tech industry. Then came the moment that would define Instagram's future forever. In April 2012, less than 2 years after Instagram's launch, and with a team of just 13 employees, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg made an offer that shocked the entire industry. Facebook acquired Instagram for approximately $1 billion in cash and stock, a staggering figure for a company with no significant revenue, dwarfing the $35 million Yahoo had paid for the photo platform Flickr just years earlier. The deal was announced on April 9, 2012, just about a month before Facebook's own initial public offering, and it had to clear regulatory review in both Britain, where the Office of Fair Trading approved it in August, and the United States, where the Federal Trade Commission closed its investigation later that same month, before officially closing on September 6, 2012, at a final price of $300 million in cash plus 23 million shares of Facebook stock. For Systrom personally, the deal was reported to be worth around $400 million. The acquisition could have gone badly. Plenty of Silicon Valley success stories end with a big company swallowing a small one and quietly letting it fade away, stripped of its identity and its team. But Zuckerberg made a specific commitment that changed everything, publicly stating that Facebook was dedicated to building and growing Instagram independently rather than absorbing it into the parent company. That promise turned out to be real, at least for a while. Systrom stayed on as CEO and continued running Instagram with a surprising amount of autonomy, expanding the app to Android within days of the deal closing in April 2012, then to a limited web interface later that same year, and eventually to platforms like Amazon's Fire OS in 2014 and Windows 10 in 2016. Under that independence, Instagram kept growing at a pace few apps in history have ever matched. It crossed 1 billion users by June of 2018, but that same year brought a major turning point behind the scenes. On September 24, 2018, after 8 years of building the company from a failed check-in app into a global platform, both Systrom and Krieger announced they were stepping down, later telling reporters they wanted to rediscover their own creativity outside the company they had built together. Adam Mosseri took over as the new head of Instagram just days later, ushering in a new era of leadership focused on features like stories, reels, and short-form video, keeping the platform competitive as user habits and attention spans kept shifting toward faster, more disposable content. Years later, Systrom and Krieger would reunite once more, launching an AI-powered news app called Artifact in January 2023. Although that project was eventually shut down and its technology folded into Yahoo, it showed that the same instinct that once stripped Burbn down to its essential idea was still very much alive in its founders. Today, Instagram stands as one of the most influential platforms in the world. With well over 1 billion monthly users and a business that generates tens of billions of dollars in annual revenue for its parent company, Meta. It helped create the entire influencer economy, changed how brands market themselves, and redefined what it means to share a moment with the world. Its story still matters because it's proof that the biggest ideas often come not from adding more, but from having the courage to strip everything away and focus on the one thing that actually works. What started as a stripped-down pivot from a failed app, born out of a simple problem about a photo that didn't look good enough, became one of the defining products of the smartphone era. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives like this one, and let us know in the comments what topic we should uncover next.